Hello, Writing Rabble. It's your rabble rouser author Chris Everhart back for another session for new writers who are looking to get started and for experienced writers who want to get unstuck or, like me, just want to find different ways to do our writing and storytelling. If you are interested in getting your story started, you are in the right place with me and my cohort, Wes Nelson. How you doing, Wes?
Good. How are you, man?
Good. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
And also it's finally spring in Minnesota, so we're acting like it's California all of a sudden.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're pretty happy about that.
Yep.
Yeah, so this week I worked on. Oh, you dropped out there again, Wes. I'm going to send Wes a quick note to let him know he disappeared again. Okay, but I Wes started getting interested in really getting started. So we decided that, Wes sent me a message saying, "Hey, do I have enough to get started or do I need to wait?" And I said, "If you have enough or you feel like you have enough, go ahead, jump into it, and then we can kind of fill in or backfill the the parts of the story as we go." So that's, I we can only plan so much. And if we are planners, that can be a particularly sticky place for us. If we're not planners, then at least for me, I tend to sit down and just start writing and go bananas. And that is not necessarily a great way to go either. So I'm hoping that the Writing Rabble Story Hill and now the Scrivener template that I've created will help all writers find a way to get that backbone into the story, just to get started. So I have mentioned a few times on previous episodes that when I started writing, I kind of had an idea of what those major things should be that have to happen in the story. And that I think that must be, and it's been so long ago now that I first learned to outline that may well have been just the book on writing a novel. Maybe that's the way it taught it. So the thing is though that when 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 we haven't studied it or haven't gotten a really clear process for getting our story together, it can be hard to sort of state what those major points should be. So you know that on the previous episode, I introduced the Writing Rabble Story Hill. That's named for our trusty llama mascot. You see him up there in the corner. And the idea is that on the front side of the hill, I'll go this way because you're watching me from this direction. On the front side of the hill, we are sort of putting in a lot of effort. Our character is, and then the back side of the hill is kind of out of control, or out of the protagonist's control, and has a maybe a faster pace to it, or maybe it's just the characteristics of the action that happens that makes it feel that way. And along the way on that story hill, we have some important story points that need to happen pretty much in all stories. And I actually can share the screen here and kind of go through it. I may well do a an additional just a another episode just explaining, just walking through the story hill, because I feel like we may have gone through it a little fast when Wes and I were talking about it. But here's the story hill. I'm going to spotlight that and bring it up. Okay, so you'll notice that over there on the right hand side, left hand side of the hill is where we get started. And then as our protagonist goes through his or her story, we are kind of climbing that hill. And the major things that have to happen is we have to introduce the ordinary world and, of course, the character in it. We have a call to adventure. The major points are the call to adventure, the inciting incident. I put in here as major plot points challenges of learning, which is what our character is going to go through. That might be a good shorthand for what happens at this phase. So we've got the blue is phase one, green is phase two, yellow is phase three, and toward the top of the hill at 50%, the protagonist has what I call a sheltered world win, and that is some success based on the skills and wisdom that they have up until then. But at the 50% mark, the goal changes. That's what is commonly called the flip the script moment. The goal changes to a different but related goal. One of the best examples I can give for this is Jaws. Chief Brody is the protagonist, and in the first half of the movie, he is running away from the shark, trying to stay away from it. And the second half of the movie, he is actually hunting the shark, going after it. And the next phase after that goal change is, we kind of want to define what gets that gets our protagonist into that goal change moment, or rather, into the next phase of the story as what I call an unsheltered world attack, and or the protagonist and team either attacks or gets attacked. And unsheltered world means that they are now out of the training wheels are off. And I guess a really good example of this is Chief Brody in the first part of, when he's trying to avoid the shark in Jaws. Second, he actually goes out on the boat and he's afraid of the water. That's a major thing there. And that attack or getting attacked, challenges of applying. In other words, as you can see, our llama is really out of control on the upper right hand corner. And the challenges of applying what they have learned up to now. They're frantically trying to put together some kind of strategy using their tactics and their skills to battle what is coming at them from the antagonist and or the antagonist's team. Then down toward the 75% mark, they'll have a false victory, and that means that they'll have what looks like a win, but they're actually stepping into a trap of some kind, usually one that is set by the antagonist or has been set by the antagonist. That, at the 75% mark, causes a failure for the all right, I see Wes. All right, here we are. All right, I was just going through the story points again. So
Oh, cool.
on the yeah, so at that 75% mark, the protagonist and team fails. The antagonist actually wins there, and at that moment, a very important part is that the protagonist is going to have that low point, but then there's an awakening, a new plan. So that's, hey, we know what to do now. Let's go after it as best we can. And along the way, the character is developing from being ego driven to values driven. And then there's a climactic battle, and that produces the true win that they want. And Wes, you can tell us actually. Do you think that this has been helpful, helping you get your story, and get it outlined so that you could get going?
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially, spending so much time making sure that all these, points are outlined in my notes was very helpful, because it told me if I didn't have a section that I wasn't ready yet. And if I start writing, I might hit this point and maybe just gloss over it or forget to include it or something like that. And it's been especially helpful now when I go through and I actually will name a section that I'm working on, this is the inciting incident. And then I know as I'm writing, don't forget that this is the inciting incident, and don't get too far off the rails and get caught up in some description. Like, this is what we need to, this is the goal for this section. So make sure that we get there. So yeah, it's been very helpful.
Cool. Now, I know we talked about this last time about, oh, and by the way, if you could get a little closer to your microphone, I'd appreciate it. You're a
Sure.
little low volume. And we talked about this last time that we actually went through each of these major plot points and kind of asked if you had the idea for what was going to go there. And there were a
Yep.
few that were still kind of up in the air, right?
Yep.
That we can always fill those in as we go along as the story develops kind of, around us or through us. Have you gotten any more of those filled in for yourself?
Not really, but I feel like as I'm going here, that the stuff that I'm including now is going to help me fill it in later. Maybe that's famous last words, but it feels like as I look at this whole approach as sort of a mirroring, and as I'm working up one side of the hill and I'm hitting all those points, and on the way down, I'm going to sort of hit those in reverse. I'm establishing some of those things now that hopefully will be easy to, again, famous last words, knock on wood, all that stuff. But it feels like I'll be able to get there. And if I don't, it'll be my own fault because I didn't outline properly. So
Well, it might be my fault too, because I'm trying to teach you how to outline. So, it definitely reflects on the teacher as much as the student, right?
well,
Um,
yeah, but I'll have you sign a waiver, maybe. I don't know.
right. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. Just don't throw me under the bus.
No.
But when you do win some award, I do definitely want credit.
Yeah.
Um, all right, cool. And so you had told me a couple of days ago that you were at that point up to about 3,000 words. Is that
Yeah. Yeah.
true? Yeah.
Up to 6,000 now. So
Sweet.
yeah,
And what
it's
parts of the story have you been working on
yeah. So
filling
I've
that in?
I in Scrivener, I've put in like my call to adventure chapter, and I'll go back later and rename it, but I've been using those as like headings so that I know what I need to get done in those areas. So I've been working on my sort of ordinary world state of perfection, my call to adventure section, and my inciting incident section. So those are filling in, and I've been kind of bopping back and forth between the state of perfection and then into my inciting incident, and sort of like already starting to like tip things over that I've already built up. So
Mm-hmm.
we're establishing how great things are, and then later on we're kind of tearing them down, and it's kind of cool to jump back and forth because it gives me some mirroring or some back and
Some
forth,
symmetry.
like
Yeah.
what's that? Yeah,
Some,
yeah,
yeah.
symmetry. Thank you. Yeah, so like he goes into work and things are going well, and then all of a sudden, a couple days later, things are not going well, and here's the things that went well, and later on, it's like, oh, this certain kind of coffee was there, and all of a sudden, it's not there. So it's a little bit more complicated than that, but
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
nice to be able to jump back and forth because I can do those things and I can remember those things as I'm going, and that's only possible through using Scrivener like this. So
Nice. Okay. Well, just for the rest of the writing rabble, is that state of perfection is not something that I've put into the story hill, but it does come from Cal Bashir, who I think well, if I don't, I will have some YouTube recommended viewing. Is that he kind of he talks about the state of perfection in the world that the character lives in, and that today, in today's storytelling, we kind of start out as in a state of imperfection. Is that right? If I remember that right. So
there
that
was,
something is broken within the world that needs attention by the protagonist.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And okay, well, let's do this. Since you're already working in Scrivener, let's jump over and I'll show you what I've been working on for Scrivener. And okay, we're gonna remove that. And then we're gonna go to Scrivener. Share that. Okay, can you see anything? Not yet. Don't answer that question. I fell into that trap last time. All right, so, and I'm going to
Got
go
it.
ahead and highlight this. Okay, so if you don't know what Scrivener is, Rabble, Scrivener is a writing software that allows you to really uh, plot out your story and easily fill in the those parts of the story with your prose writing. I mean, is there any better description than that, Wes? What do you think?
No, it makes sense. That's good.
Yeah, and my first book, my first manuscript, I wrote on Word, Microsoft Word, using all the little plus and minus outline features. So it's not, entirely unlike this, but Scrivener offers a really good graphic representation. And by the way, one thing I did learn too, and so we talked a little bit about too of how writers like to put their stories together. Some people like to use note cards or post-its on a wall or on a whiteboard or something like that for each of the parts, so that they can move those things around. And Scrivener allows you to do that as well. And by the way, one thing I noticed here, Wes, is that if so, you notice at the top is sort of the bigger picture stuff about the story, including the a version of the story hill there, the character arc that we talked about last week, and then some questions, stakes, dramatic question, theme that you kind of want to dig into and maybe flesh out a little bit before your story. General and you don't have to. It's just that but at some point the stakes, the dramatic question, the theme are going to come into play, and you'll have a chance to go back in the story and make sure that your scenes, your action, or whatever are on theme, and that the dramatic question, which is about the character, you know that's got a nice through line and continuity. I also put the mentor and guide there, mentor or guide. I put the antagonist there as well, and the MacGuffin. Those are things that were on the story hill. You'll notice they're MacGuffin is in the middle of the arc. Our mentor guide is right under the llama climbing the hill on the left side, and the antagonist is up there in a satellite kind of circling, because the antagonist can show up pretty much any place up to the climax at 90%. So I put those there, and then what I did was I took each of those points of the Writing Rabble hill, story hill, and put them each of them into a color coded folder for the different phases of the story. So we've got phase one, phase two, three, four, five, six. And within these, what I did was I put in these, each of those. You see, I don't, can you see that there's a little
Oh yeah.
character guy in
Yep.
there? Okay, or gal. So I separated the character arc things, and also the blue circle there is like the story arc, if you will, the plot arc or whatever.
Cool.
Yeah, you'll notice there too is that in phase two, this is the first place we're going to see that 10%. And well, that 10 represents the 10% call to adventure. So we've got 10, 25, 50, 75, and 90, and those are the major turning points that help us color code the hill up and down. So a 10%, around 10% is the call to adventure. There's a refusal to call. The character is going to be afraid to change. There's going to be pressure on the character to change. That's a plot arc or plot point. And then oh, hello. Guess I'll just spell that wrong. Insufficient world or self. Okay. So how do you like this layout? Do you think it would be helpful?
Yeah, that's awesome. So you have those untitled documents would just be where you put the actual
Right.
scene or stuff. Cool.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're working on this, you could also write down here. You just start typing your
Oh
notes,
yeah,
and then that might help you flesh out those story ideas.
yeah.
Um, One thing I'm a little unsure about is how the I, the, is how it's organized as far as in a linear fashion.
Mm.
And so maybe if you try to work with this for a week or so, and you can let me know that, because I kind of wonder if each of these story points should be all just be up around here,
Oh
and everything kind of there that you can sort of go through at the beginning of each phase,
yeah,
because these are not necessarily all in you know chronological order over the course of the story. Um, I mean, definitely, like a Sheltered World Wind, that kind of thing would be. Things like New Perspective, False Mastery, those are represented in the story by the action and by
yeah.
what the character experiences. So, I don't know, work with it a little bit. I'll send it to
Okay,
you and you can let me know.
okay.
Um, Other thing that I noticed is that if you are a person who likes to work with um, work with index cards or something like that, what you can do is you can highlight all of these, and then you see on the main page here,
Yeah.
there we go. We've got every
Oh,
one of them.
nice.
Each folder, each phase is separated by a line there.
Yeah.
Um, and then if I were to move this over there, it actually makes the move in here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I don't know what I just moved, but um, so yeah, so that can be a really, hopefully, a really helpful uh, thing as well. And let's go back to this. And generally, you probably won't be moving. Oh, that's interesting. I just noticed that there are folders. If you open the folder, okay, that's when. So you have to open the folder in order to get all of the uh,
Oh, all the cards.
yeah, all the cards within it.
Yeah.
Still pretty cool though. So yeah, if you're a card person, if you like to organize that way,
Well,
um,
I was gonna buy a whiteboard just to do that feature until I saw it in Scrivener, and I was like,
oh, right
"Oh,
on.
this is perfect. It's all right
Yeah,
there."
well, yeah, and I have a whiteboard because sometimes I like to just think on my feet, and
Yeah.
a lot of things that I work on, just helps me get up and get going. In fact, I'm gonna look briefly here and see if I think I'll share this so you can see a little bit about how my story, uh, how my thinking goes. So I'm going to cancel that. Go share screen window. Here you go. All right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that
Yeah. That's
that's what's
uh
going on inside my head.
yeah. You got a full
And
bank heist here. This is
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. This was a story that I was working on, and this one has been really hard to crack. Um, so this is sort of uh, 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 this is sort of an urban horror thriller,
Yeah.
and I was trying I was trying to put this story together, and I have been trying for quite a while, and there's just something wrong with the story, and so this is what helped me get on my feet to try to figure it out. And I'm not exactly there yet. So, but this would be at least a trilogy,
Okay.
and yeah, with possibility of longer term. But it's a story I want to tell because it involves a girl who is really kind of on her own, and has to, and the adventure she goes on is really terrifying,
Okay.
but she really shows up for it. And we talked a little bit too about the dramatic. What I not well, this is not a dramatic axis right here. That's not officially what it is. but this I kind of worked out, and it's just like sometimes I feel like there's something that I could try to explain, and that's kind of where I'm calling this now the tension axis,
Oh,
and that is that the character has wants. And so if you notice there up top, I'm getting a little off topic here, but might help me work it out a little more. So in each of these, character has wants and needs, and then there's things that are working against their wants and needs. And each of those has a place in the character arc or the plot. And
hmm.
then you'll notice below it's the plot or the character arc,
Yeah.
right? So, for example, this character, I think her name is Sydney. She wants to be alone, right? And we talked about this, by the way, in the story Hill, where the character, when we're developing the character has wants that are stated
Yeah.
and needs that are unstated, right?
Yep.
So, and that the character, frankly, may not be aware of. So, in this case, in this story, Sydney wants to be alone, but she needs to connect.
Okay.
So, her character arc is she wants to be alone, but the plot is going to work against that want
Oh, got
by
it.
forcing the need
Yeah.
upon her, right?
And that builds tension because they're working against each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if you look just below that, the plot side of what she wants is she wants to live her plan, and that's expressed by what she does in her world.
Yeah.
I think in this case, she's pickpocketing people on the street and cracking their cell phones and selling them. And her overall plan is, as a 16-year-old, is to get enough money to run away from home and be comfortable.
Yeah.
But what she needs is to choose community,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
So, and that the character arc, her character arc is going to work against her in this way
Hmm.
because she will be forced to choose community,
I see.
right? Okay, now there's the anti-want. Um, well, if you look at the opposite of her want up in the upper left,
Yep.
the lower left, her anti-want is she lives in a city and she's surrounded by people.
Yep.
That's the plot. If we look at the anti-need, which is the opposite of what she needs, the connection is she in her character arc, she will reject the connection,
Okay.
right? She'll try to keep out of relationships.
Yeah.
And by the way, what happens is she gets an invitation to go to this exclusive academy outside the city, and she she needs to go because she's in some serious trouble with some local
Okay.
gangs, right?
Yeah.
So again, your inciting incident is oh, got to get out of town, right?
Yeah.
So she actually chooses. But the call to adventure had come earlier at that 10% point when she gets a video call from a friend who is at this academy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, and I don't know, maybe you can see it. Oh, maybe you can see it on here. I don't really know. But okay, so her anti-want, the character arc, is if she's successful at this academy, because she's plenty smart, it will offer her a new life. They tell her that,
Yep.
right? So she starts changing her mind to work for success in this new environment. That's a character arc thing. And the on the plot side, the things that are thrown at her and the things that she learns about this place will force her to escape in order to survive.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I'm, it's kind of, pushing that tension there. And so
Yeah.
if you look over to the right, the third one down, it's a push pull kind of axis
Yeah.
as well. So she's trying to avoid jail and frankly avoid getting killed. Um, and but and the pull is she's offered a new life in this academy.
Hmm.
Another push is that she wants to be free, And the pull is that there's a bigger world outside of her neighborhood in her city.
Wow.
So, and then if you look at the upper right, you're seeing the theme um, is she's kind of asking, or we are asking, is it better to be an individual or part of a community?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that that's just that's one of the things I kind of worked out to try to tell this story. Um, yeah, it's
Yeah, she's really it's a definite, yeah, where is she gonna go? Because she needs to do this, but she can't, doesn't want to, and that back and forth the whole time.
yeah, yeah. So I'll keep working on that, and someday I'll crack it, and uh, maybe now that I can apply the story hill to it, it'll we'll get it worked out. Um, okay, so back to the Scrivener. Um, So, do you see anything in here that's is anything jumping out at you that you would like to see different that you're not sure would be helpful, or maybe just the way you think in particular? Now, by the way, once you have the template, you can move
Mm-hmm.
stuff around. I
Yeah.
mean, it's up to you. I just want to know, kind of in a general sense, if this is something that you think will work.
Yeah, this is what I was starting to do, but it's already, the template's there. So
Right.
no, this
Well,
is great.
It wasn't here until about 35 minutes ago. So,
Oh.
I mean, I've
Nice.
been working on it all week.
How did you do the numbers inside of the folders there where you have
uh,
25 and 10
yeah,
and
yeah. So, you can create your own icons.
oh, okay.
So, if you do a right click, I mean, you can go down to change icon, and I use Canva to create these little doohickeys here.
Okay.
So Canva's a pretty easy,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a pretty easy graphic design thing. And so you notice here, some of these are older too, where I use Darth Vader's helmet as the villain.
Nice.
And actually, I do have one or more um, uh, projects where I was using a lot of Cal Bashir's stuff. I mentioned that I got his PDF and was really studying hard, and there were a lot of details in there that I was using to within Scrivener. So I was actually, creating the icons for that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I just figured it was, I could create all these icons to match up directly. Like here's some older ones that I've used: 25%, 50%, 75, 90, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what was another one? Oh, there's a Clash of Swords.
Nice.
But I went ahead and created these ones for the Writing Rabble. All right. And by the way, if anybody's curious, or if you're curious and you want to create some different icons for yourself, you basically have to make the little icon, but then once you do, you can go to manage icons. I don't know if you can see that, but and then you just add something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it can be really helpful. So, all right. Anything else here that you'd like to see different,
I
or?
like I like the idea, and I don't know if you can do this or not, but like you were saying, how maybe the new skills, the sheltered win, how you said it doesn't have to go linear, but maybe there's like a way to like check it off. Like you have this list that you need to accomplish for that section, and you could have like
Yeah.
a checklist or something like that. I don't know. That's something I could look into.
Well, the other thing is that once you start writing in here, so now now you see that you've got something in
Oh
there
yeah,
instead of just untitled, and
yeah.
um, you can actually put your own title in there, which I do for my documents just as little cues of reminder. So,
Okay,
um, you know, uh, usually I use H for hero until I have a. So, so there it is.
I see.
So that can be helpful there.
Yeah.
If we go back to Untitled, um, and anything else that
What do
you might
you
like differently?
populate your research stuff with? Just do you just dump everything in there or
I really don't use the research tab.
okay.
Um, you certainly can. I'll show you. Let me see. Recent projects, iDemon. All right, so let's do this. I'll show you how I typically work with or have worked with Scrivener. So I'm going to drop that and we're going to add another one. Okay, so iDemon is the story I've been working on for Coalescence Publishing. And all right, so you'll notice here that, and frankly, it's a little haphazard compared to the new Writing Rabble, right? Um, but here's what I always do is I start with what I call an outline, but it's really not a full, oh, wait, I got to add this up here. Highlight that. Okay. So I'll sit down and I'll start what I call an outline.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's just my, stream of consciousness notes about how the story might go.
Yeah.
So it says town built on a hellmouth. For some reason, hero girl is not affected by the evil everyone else experiences. In this case, she's completely out of place, right? So I'll put down some notes there, right? And these are all general notes about the story. So,
Yep.
and then what I'll do then, or what I have done is, again, this is different from what the Writing Rabble is, but then I will start. Um, I'll start the story, and I almost always start it with intro for me.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, maybe I should put that in there because for me, okay, so everybody in the Writing Rabble is getting this early. It's not published yet. So the first thing, and here's another thing about writing. There are a few things that we talked a little bit about. That I haven't mentioned that I had included in some of the Writing Rabble descriptions, and that was, you may have seen it. It says. Enter late.
Okay.
Right? Okay, so in screenwriting, this is where I learned this in particular, is one of the rules is enter late and leave early.
Oh, okay.
Scene, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, if unless it's super important about how your character has made his eggs and toast,
Yeah.
you know, uh, if you're using that to display something specific about your character, that may be, fine putting that in there. Otherwise, it's kind of boring, at least for the mass market fiction thrillers and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, she starts out in this is her narrative. So it's first person, present tense so far. She says, "Welcome to Brimstone, the most boring town under Earth. Nothing ever happens here, which is probably why souls in the outside realms don't know much about us. Even if a human accidentally stumbles in and is lucky enough to escape, the other people on Earth hardly ever believe them. Nope, that would be too interesting. I stand in front of the mirror in my bedroom studying my new demonic semblance." Right? So
Mm-hmm.
starting late. In this highest ring of hell, we grow up with only human skin. Corrupting mortals on the earthly plane is easier if we look just like them. Our semblance, our demon face, isn't revealed until now, on our 17th black moon. And
Ooh.
just like everything else in my life, it's a huge disappointment. So,
Yeah. So
um,
right off the bat, I have a million questions because you started late. I have no idea. I want to know
yeah,
more. Yeah.
yep, yeah. So, show don't tell is another one of those kind of rules that we work by. But I've always liked that start late, leave early.
Yeah.
So you'll notice in here I have a couple of flagged things, and this is for me again. In this case, I'm going to start using the Writing Rabble template going forward. But these are ideas that came in the later books, because I've
Yeah.
got book 2 and book 3 all in the same document, where I went, oh, I gotta make sure to establish this earlier,
Okay.
right? So that way it's not. So Mika being a rival, Mika was a character who showed up, like you said. Oh, by the way, you said this week you had a
Yeah.
character show up and demand
Yeah.
to be heard.
Yeah.
What was that like?
They just waltzed straight into the room. It was like this unbalanced equation. Like I had this character walk into a room and he had no one to talk to, and it was like, oh, well, here we go. Here's Ned. Ned's gonna be this new guy now. It was great.
No,
It was
yeah,
fun. I
it's
mean,
interesting.
you
Did he
said that
have?
was gonna happen. And I was like, I was gonna text you, but it was like 12:30 at night. I was like, I'll just talk tomorrow.
Did Ned have his what he wanted to say and what he was wearing and or
Oh yeah,
what food
yeah,
he was eating when he walked into the
yeah.
room?
He came fully fleshed out. He looks like that Zach Woods from Silicon Valley or The Office. That
Yeah.
yeah, he just was like popped right into my head. I was like, oh yes, of course.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'd mentioned that I was having trouble with this story over the past few months because I was missing some really important parts. A good guy, a bad guy, and a ticking clock. I didn't have a ticking clock, and I was also missing rivals. So I realized that I had to make this character who was already in there and was somewhat friendly. I had to make her into a rival for our
Oh
girl.
yeah,
But yeah, so you see, it's really, I've got, documents in here with, notes about the world, right? I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot in there, right?
yeah.
And I'm asking myself questions throughout. What's the purpose or the goal of the evil that they do,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So it's almost like stream of consciousness, but I don't want to, I don't want to let go. I don't want to throw any of this away because it
yeah,
may come in handy. And these things that are highlighted in red and yellow and stuff, a lot of this is stuff that I pulled out of chapters, and or actually, what they are is they're what I've written at the header or at the beginning of the chapter. So what I do is or what I have done is I go through and I know something has to happen. So, stop the marauders. So I
yeah.
put some notes in there. And if this is a longer note, then I might edit it, pull it out and put it in another place so I don't lose it. Okay. So
And
that's the
that's
way
a
I've been
cool.
using it. And then I've used all these things to, these little blue warning outlines to remind me to do something and
Oh
that
yeah,
kind of thing. Yeah. So, and you notice here, this right here, it's a note about demon towns, but I actually sometimes I've got dialogue that comes up when I'm doing, when I'm writing some parts of the story or just brainstorming about how this might work. So in this case, the boy says, "But you're trying to be good, right?" And C, which is now Cordy,
yeah.
short for Cordiva. Yeah, I'm trying. I think sometimes I really am good, just not for long. So that kind of thing. Uh, she says, "You'd be surprised where the Hellmouths are. Las Vegas? Nope, that's where we go for vacation. New York City? Obviously. Tell me one I'd never guess. Tulsa, Oklahoma. No way. Yeah, they act so nice, but they are pure evil." So that's how I've been using it.
Nice.
Yeah, but and anything like this as you go forward, you're obviously you're totally welcome to, you know, put those little notes and that kind of stuff in here. You notice there, this one has an X icon,
Yeah.
and this is stuff that I've edited out,
Oh,
that I've
interesting.
pulled out of chapters,
Yeah.
and I don't want to throw it away.
Yeah. That's a good call because yeah, you might want to come back to that or something.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So that way, because I've done it plenty of times where I've thought, oh yeah, I'll remember it, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, what was that thing? I'm trying to.
Yeah.
So let's
Because
see.
when you go back through and you're ready to shoot this off to a publisher, you pick which sections go or not. So there's no worry about putting too
Yeah,
much into Scrivener, right?
Right. So what you do is when you're ready, you go to File and all the way down to Compile. And can you see this? Oh
No,
wait,
I
it's
think.
not in there yet. Hold on. And scene. Oh, that's interesting. It doesn't show you the kind of the extra stuff. Anyway, it's grayed out, but there's a window over it on mine, and then you
Oh,
can
okay.
literally check boxes of what you want included and what not included in the document that you compile. So you can leave out all the notes. So you could, for example, you leave out all this stuff, and you could actually uncheck all of these headings, but
Oh, okay.
leave in the places where you've written your story.
Sweet.
Yeah. So yeah. So I'll send this over to you and have a whack at it and let me
Okay.
know over the week what you think.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Yeah, we're a little short today. No hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
We're about 46 minutes right now, and that's good.
Yeah.
Um, what questions may have come up over the week that you might want to throw at me right now, or you
Yeah.
know?
So I'm reading Jennifer Egan's book Candy House, and I noticed that she's an amazing author. Blows me away. I mean, I just can't. Every time I'm just like speechless when I'm done with her stuff. And of course I want to emulate her. But so how much daydreaming or how much non-dialogue, just sort of thought stream of consciousness do you let your characters get into when you're going?
For me, it's not much because of the way I write and the type of stories that I write.
Yeah.
I have had editors describe my writing as quote cinematic,
Okay.
and it, if you knew me, having been influenced so much by TV and movies, even over books, because I was not a good reader when I was a kid. That makes a lot of sense. So for me, it's there's a lot more action and dialogue, not too much dialogue, but I like to express that, either like to express what the character is going through or what they're noticing in, just little bits.
Yeah.
But to me, um, that needs to be exposed in the story, in what the character is doing and what they're seeing and how they're reacting to it, whether emotionally or thought wise.
Yeah.
I find a lot of, when I'm reading, that's what I want as well, most of the time, although it depends on the writer. I
Yeah.
mean, I could read John Steinbeck all day long with zero dialogue. It's his descriptions and the way he talks about ideas and stuff are, to me, are so rich, but I
Yeah.
don't think I'm that good of a writer.
That's what it seems like when I read her stuff. I'm like, I think she's pulling this off and she makes it look easy, but I don't know that I can do that. And if I try, it's going to be obvious or it's just going to get so boring. Like, I don't know. So it's like, I want to emulate it, but I also don't want to get stuck into talking about a smoothie recipe for
Right.
4 pages, that no
Yeah.
one cares about.
Well, I'm not familiar with Jennifer Egan. What does she write? What kind of
It's
books genre?
it's more like 5 or 6 or 7 characters that kind of overlap and intersect, and each chapter is like a different character. It's either a son or an uncle or it's just like all these people's lives that are somehow kind of connected.
So is it
And
like drama or family
yeah, yeah,
drama or
it's
something like that?
drama. So maybe a lot more heavy lifting that needs to happen in each chapter. That if it was drawn out more, there might be more action. I'm not sure. Probably the style lends itself to that sort of reverie that she kind of gets into, but
Hmm.
it's super fascinating and right away. And I'm very much influenced by whatever I'm reading at the time. I'm like, oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be a bit of a struggle to keep that. Well, and to be fair, you're just getting started again, so it's going to take you a little while to develop your own voice.
Yeah.
And like you could tell by just the things that I read to you from the Demon story that I have a pretty well developed voice,
Hmm.
or at least a good feel for um, letting the character tell the stories in their voice.
Yeah.
And what it is years ago, and I mentioned this a little bit in my book, The Writing Rabble, up there in the corner, everybody, um, and link in the description, that I took improv comedy classes 20 years ago or something, because I knew that it would help me loosen up and trust my ideas,
Okay.
right? Or trust the flow and the process. And it did help a lot, actually. It was really, really cool. There's some of the lessons I learned there. One of the lessons was that we did a one class session. The instructor was just throwing out, per descriptions and like occupations or something at people, and each of us, then we had to quickly come up with something that this character was doing. And at the end of the class, she said, as soon as I said, you are a baker arguing with a customer about the price of bread,
Yeah.
you knew what had to come out, and that was really enlightening to me, to get me out of my overthinking mode. It was like,
Oh, I
oh,
see.
oh,
Interesting.
I can trust myself in my process,
Yeah.
right?
So do you
It's
trick
like,
yourself into that as you're writing?
no, I don't really have to anymore.
Oh, okay.
I mean, early on, probably I did, or I had to, had to catch myself and tell myself to stop doing the other thing, which was overthinking everything that was happening.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it, uh, it 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 just takes a while to get a flow and a pace that is your own, and to trust. I mean, you're the one sitting down and writing, so the relationship is only between you and you,
Hmm.
right? So you know, you or I, each writer has to have a trusting relationship with themselves,
Yeah.
so that just like I don't micromanage something that other people do. I try not to micromanage my writing,
Interesting.
because frankly it takes all the freaking fun out of it.
Yeah.
And also, it might make the product not so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bet people can tell when you're having fun writing it versus not.
Yeah, I think so. Well, and that's what's worthwhile. Again, we talked a little bit about this before too, is that you know um, the world needs you and your voice. We already have a Stephen King and
Yeah.
each of these different writers, and what the world and what readers are looking for is someone with is a unique take on the world and a
Yeah.
unique way of expressing things.
Yeah.
So if you turn out to be somebody who writes in detail about what's going on around your character, there's probably a place for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of Arthur C. Clarke as a science fiction writer. I don't know if you've ever read any of his stuff, but it's pretty thick. It's pretty dense on description and ideas and that kind of thing. But I've enjoyed some of his writing,
Yeah.
probably because of the authentic point of view,
Yeah.
right?
So
But
that
go ahead.
so that like jumps right into the next thing is how much location scouting or how much of that do you worry about, or do you pick places that exist in real life? Because I'm starting to do that, so now I feel like I need to go to all these places, take notes, get the smells right, get the color of the tile right, and or I guess I could shortcut that and not use real places, and then I could just make it up on my own.
Yeah, most of my settings are entirely fictional.
Okay.
So I don't. Maybe I do it because I'm too lazy to study. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not entirely true. That early on, I was writing like military political thrillers,
Oh, cool.
and I actually I called people who knew. I my first manuscript was called The First Gentleman. It was about the murder of the husband of the first female president of the United States while he was under Secret Service protection, and then the the mob connections that were revealed because of that. And I mean, my wife had a former friend who was a Secret Service agent. I called him up, spent a lot of time talking to him.
Nice.
Yeah, when I was working on the next novel, actually before I started writing young adult and young reader stuff, I was writing a story about a special ops soldier who got shot in the head and went blind in a hostage rescue, a Delta Force guy.
Nice.
So through my connections with my Secret Service friend, who is
Yeah.
in retired now, long retired, but he knew a lot of serious people, and he got me in touch with his friends and was really generous in that way. And he actually he actually got me in touch with a former U.S. ambassador to Colombia.
Oh
His
no.
email said, yeah, his email to me said, "Call. Here is so and so's name, and he knows that you're going to call him." And he writes in a sentence, almost like a throwaway. He led the hunt for Pablo Escobar. Yeah,
No way.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
talked to the guy, and yeah, he was very helpful,
Wow.
but I ended up just not pursuing that kind of writing.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, Doug is the name of my friend who's Secret Service retired, and then he became a international aviation security consultant.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so he worked a lot with the TSA, and he became friends with a retired four-star Marine Corps general who was head of. I don't think it was a TSA. It was something that was over the TSA or something like that. And Doug had moved from, and his wife had moved from the Twin Cities down to Reno.
Hmm.
Doug had been, traveled so much all over the world that he really knew he doesn't like Hawaii.
Hmm.
That's how much he travels. It's like I don't
Yeah.
like going to Hawaii. Um, anyway, I flew down to Reno to visit, and I'd already set up a time to go over the mountain into California. Doug drove me over there to sit with this retired Marine Corps general and talk with him about national security and stuff.
Wow.
And there were some things where he he would tell me something and go, "This is not for publication."
Wow.
Yeah. So, I at that, and by the way, for my first book, The First Gentleman, I actually, it was, Jesus, it was 2000, I think. My stepson was in eighth or ninth grade. I actually chaperoned his trip to Washington, D.C., and made
Oh
sure I got a tour of the White House and
yeah.
all that, studied the White House, and really got into it. But since then, since I started writing for younger audiences, I don't do, when it comes to my, my fun fiction, I do have a story that is super serious and that I'm thinking again about brushing off and finally publishing. But that actually, I was able to do a lot of, well, most of the research uh, with Google Maps
Oh
and
yeah.
Street View, you
Yeah.
know. So, long story short, most of my stuff now is fictional setting.
Okay.
But I mean, you had talked earlier about wanting to set your that you wanted your story to be set in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
So you really have to, well, you have to decide how much time you have to put into visiting all these different places and stuff. Or, is it a fun weekend thing that you can take one or more of the kids with and,
Yeah.
and look around. But,
Yeah. I'm gonna do it because it's fun and I want to
mhm.
get it right because I think when I read some like John Sanford or something and they talk about a certain highway and I'm like, oh my god, I was on that
Yeah,
highway, and it's like
exactly.
this
Yeah.
cool moment. So I want to get it right. If anyone reads it, they'll be like, oh, I've been there. That's not, those tiles are green. He got that right. So
Yeah, you again, I mentioned this before about setting is, you can decide if it's a fictionalized, version
yeah,
of the city too. But yeah, so that's to me that's part of the fun. When I was
yeah,
mentioning all the research and interviews I'd done, that's part of the fun. I
yeah,
mean, because of my writing, I've met people and talked to people I never would have otherwise.
yeah.
You know,
That part's cool.
yeah, that's part of the adventure.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Just,
Otherwise,
today and these days I don't care to travel that much anymore. I mean, I travel a few times a year for Comic Cons because we
oh
take our badass girl to Comic Cons. But when I lived in Tennessee, I was a regional sales rep for a couple of different companies, so I traveled every week, and I kind of, it's like, man, I don't care. I'd rather be home,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
sitting in my office and writing stories.
absolutely.
Yeah, but and so it's that's entirely up to you. If
Okay.
if you if you're doing it because you're afraid that people are going to criticize your research or whatever, or then don't bother because somebody's going to find something to complain
Yeah,
about no matter what.
I was more like future tripping about something that's not even happening yet. Where my next book, I'm gonna set it in Pittsburgh, and there's no way I'm getting to Pittsburgh immediately. So then I'd be like, well, how the hell am I gonna write about Pittsburgh? And it's like
Well, I the
not even
the
there yet. What am I
the
doing?
question that goes begging is, why do you want to write a story set in Pittsburgh?
Exactly, but my head goes to that extreme, and I'm not even on that part yet. So I have to kind of rein that back in.
Yeah, yeah. Do what you can do with what you've got and
Yeah,
where you are right now.
yeah,
It's a hell of a lot easier to drive, go for an afternoon and drive around to some of the locations you're thinking about using in
yeah,
Minneapolis or St. Paul.
yeah.
Cool.
No, it's all good.
Yeah. What else? Anything else come up during your writing that was hanging
Um,
you up, or
my character he's a lot more evil than I thought. He
your
is,
protagonist?
yes, like
Okay.
he's not the greatest of guys, but shouldn't say evil. He's a little bit more selfish, egocentric, kind of a not a great guy, and I think that's going to work out better because you'll have a longer arc to go through.
Yeah.
So I was surprised about that though. He just kind of became this as I was going, and I was sort of like, oh my gosh, he's not the greatest of people.
Well,
So
yeah. There's a. I've heard this question too. Is that your protagonist needs to be relatable. Doesn't matter if they're likable or not,
yeah, okay,
right? So you got to, but again, you decide what kind of story you're writing.
yeah,
I can see a version. Excuse me. I can see a version of your character that is, well. There's a book called Save the Cat
okay,
by, I think, Blake Snyder is his name, and he's kind of the person who really highlights the idea of relatable versus likable. Not versus, but relatable, not likable.
yeah,
And he says that, and again, he's a screenwriting guy, but he says, if your protagonist isn't necessarily likable, he has to do something that is likable,
oh, okay,
right? So, and Save the Cat is his
yeah,
version of that.
got
So,
it,
um, and that's not necessarily doesn't have to be an event, but let's say that, in business, you're showing, because you're showing about how successful he is, or for reasons he doesn't really understand. He assumes it's him, that he's just awesome, and that's why he's, but he's going to find the hard way that that wasn't the case. But if he is a little bit smarmy, or pushy, or something like that, then you want to show a softer side of him.
Okay.
And again, if he is, we talked a lot about him being a family man, right?
Yeah.
So if you that is a really good place to show a dimension that is really likable and admirable.
Okay.
So you can put something together there that just shows that different side of him.
Yeah. I
And
just
again, go ahead.
no, I had that same thought. So I immediately started writing a scene where he's in his car with his kid going to a hockey game. It's like, so yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, let's say that that's a good thing. So let's say that he gets in a shoving match with somebody at his kid's hockey game because he's so protective of him, or
Yeah.
he was working. So that puts it more into action than into telling,
Oh, right.
right?
Right.
So, or and one of the things, again, enter late and leave early, in TV and film, you see it where you can create a kind of shorthand where, when he leaves the house with the kids to go to the hockey game, his wife could say, "Don't argue with the referee today." So and so called, every time you do, so one of my friends or frenemies sends a video of you, yelling at another
Yeah.
parent or something like that,
Yeah. That's
right?
good.
So that exhibits both his kind of pushiness,
Yeah.
and entitlement, but also his softness and care for his kids.
Yeah. He's protecting his kid and he also expects everything to go his way. So when it doesn't, he's going to react violently. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, there's a point, there's an opportunity for some comedy there too, right?
Yeah.
But remember that, and you decide if you're developing your character this way or not, that because his dad wasn't around when he was a kid, he's trying to be, or wants to be, and is, really involved parent,
Yeah.
and a really dedicated family man at home. But at business, it's, at work or whatever, it can be a different story because he really does get what he wants,
Right.
you know. Um, Maybe his wife, or the relationships with his wife and kids limits his power to get what he wishes,
Hmm.
right? So it's kind of like, almost like, the closer you are to someone, the harder it is for this power to manipulate them,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So, and again, that's something that can be expressed through the story,
Yeah.
right? As he goes on. So you don't have to explain everything up front. You're just
Yeah.
kind of, and so in those early chapters, up to the point where his dad dies and the genie jumps out of him,
Hmm.
we might want, you might want to put little clues in there, just little, little sparkle here and there of the supernatural, you know.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I got to figure out how to do that, but I know what you're saying. Little,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
little
mean,
breadcrumbs or something.
right. I mean, what if he's at the office and the coffee's cold,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Um, and somebody's like, "Oh, the coffee's cold. Don't bother." Really? It's not cold for me. Right?
Yeah. No, yes. Yeah. I just thought of something. He doesn't experience the cold. Like he goes outside, he doesn't wear a jacket.
Oh, wow.
So, like, yeah, no, that's okay. I got to expand more on that though.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, this
Anything
is fun.
else?
No, this is fun. I want to get going again.
All right, right on. Okay, well, I am going to try to share this template with you after we hang up,
Okay.
and because I don't know how to do that yet, but we will see. I'll get it to you as soon as I can. All right, well, let me sign out. We're on time now, hour and 10 minutes. All right, so let me play us out, and then we'll get on with our week. All right. Thanks for joining us, Writing Rabble. Really appreciate having you guys here. Today we I gave a overview again of the Story Hill, and then Wes and I went over the template that I created for Scrivener using the Story Hill major plot points and the minor plot points and character development. So I'm going to send that to him, and he'll give it a try over the week and see if we need to make some modifications. And then we talked about what Wes created in his 6,000 words of writing this week and what questions he had. So we're getting into the fun stuff now, and it's going to be really fun to watch Wes on his writing adventure and what happens next. So again, if you are curious about how I got started, so up here in the corner somewhere is the Writing Rabble book. Write and publish your books your way. The link is to the Amazon. The Kindle version is in the description down below. So join us again. And next week, I think we're going to have another episode to see how Wes is doing and to put some finer points on the tools that we're using with the Writing Rabble. So thanks for joining us. Until next time, butt in chair, words on page. Bye now.